wake up together early in the morning. Petra rushes out to go to class, but James decides to stay in bed a little longer. This causes him to oversleep, and by the time he wakes up again, he's already late. He runs through the city as fast as he can, until he makes it to his philosophy class, where the teacher, Mr. Zimmett, at first considers not letting him, but eventually he opens the door. Today is the last school day, and Mr. Zimmett wants the students to tell them about their favorite thought exercise they've gone through. Chips mentions the infinite monkey theorem, which says that if you give a monkey a typewriter and an infinite amount of time, it will eventually type out the entire Hamlet. Jack mentions the trolley problem, which says you have a lever to choose if a train will kill 1 or 4 people. Just for fun, they change that riddle into the obese man problem, where you have to option to push a fat man on the tracks to stop the trolley. Georgina likes the ignorant bliss paradox. In this one, someone is hanging off the highest tower in the city on purpose to test if their friends will help them. However, the friends are afraid if they try to pull them up, they might be yanked over themselves, so they step back. The person falls and lives, but now they wonder if it truly is better knowing that their friends wouldn't save them, or if ignorance is bliss. Zimmett decides that they will do one last thought exercise to finish the school year. The class must assume there is an impending atomic apocalypse and imagine a bunker that will give them shelter for a year. Zimmett begins narrating the scene to make everyone use their imaginations, picturing an area surrounded by nuclear explosions. As Zimmett takes them through an imaginary tour of the bunker, he points out the problem. There are only supplies for 10 people. The class has 20 students in it, so they have to decide which of them to let in and who stays out. On top of that, there isn't much time to decide before the atomic radiation reaches them. Georgina refuses to participate because she thinks it's just like discussing eugenics. But when Zimmett describes how gruesome and painful it is to die under radiation, she accepts to play. Petra also refuses to participate and even stands up to leave, knowing that she's always had perfect grades and Zimmett can't hurt her by lowering them a bit. Zimmett threatens to lower James's grades instead, which would make him fail the class, and Petra has no choice but to stay. Next, Zimmett distributes cards containing the random profession each student will have in the exercise. He opens the box for James first, and after he takes a card, Zimmett goes to the desk to cough before handing a card to Petra. Then he coughs against at the desk before giving cards to everyone else. Now the students can look at the professions they got. All these jobs vary in themes, from harpist and wine auctioneer to astronaut and chemist. Toby reveals he's a published poet, but he barely gets to finish talking before Zimmett shoots him, revealing he took the gun from the bunker. Zimmett explains that this is more humane than letting him die by radiation, since he wouldn't get into the bunker anyway, because a poet isn't useful when humanity must be rebuilt. Zimmett also explains he's part of the exercise, but his profession is hidden, so he should be seen as a wild card. Afterward, each student defends their right to enter the bunker, and they proceed to vote. The first 9 choices are those who they consider useful for survival: Petra, the structural engineer; James, the farmer; Georgina, the orthopedic surgeon; Chips, the carpenter; Jack, the chemist; Bonnie, the soldier; Andy, the electrician; Poppy, the psychotherapist; and Almost, the senator. There are also 9 that quickly get voted out for not being useful: Vivian, the zoologist; Beatrice, the fashion designer; Parker, the gelato maker; Katie, the real estate agent; Russell, the harpist; Plum, the hedge fund manager; Nelson, the housekeeper; Mitzi, the wine auctioneer; and Yoshiko, the astronaut. The last place must be chosen between Zimmett and Utami, the opera singer. Petra thinks a wild card is a risk, but Jack points out that an opera singer is a luxury, and he'd rather risk it with Zimmett, who may have a useful secret. Zimmett wins, and now that the groups are completed, they take 5 minutes to say goodbye, so they move the desks around to pretend they're having their final words. Suddenly they hear some gunshots and discover Zimmett has killed everyone who didn't get a spot, again saying it was the humane thing to do. The group is shocked, and Petra whispers to James that she doesn't want Zimet in the bunker anymore. James makes a plan and asks everyone to gather some plants before going into the bunker, claiming they're keeping them for replanting when they come out. While everyone is separated to do the gathering, James goes to each of them in turn and tells them of his plan. When the time comes, the group enters the bunker and disables the external keypad before closing the door while Zimet is left outside. Then they take a look at the different rooms. There's an artificial garden, a daybed, a gym, books, and other things to supposedly avoid depression. In the evening, while everyone sleeps on the cots, James meets Petra on the big bed and tells her he can get through anything with her. Once James falls asleep, Petra goes to check on Zimet and finds him slowly burning under the radiation. Suddenly, Zimet holds up a piece of paper that says only he has the exit code. Petra immediately calls the group, and they begin arguing over what to do, unsure if believing Zimet or not. In the end, they decide to ignore him, and they begin to live through the year in the bunker. It's incredibly boring, and they barely can keep themselves busy with mundane tasks. Every day Petra checks on Zimet's body, which is slowly rotting, and occasionally a dog comes to munch on it. Once the year passes, the group gets ready to come out, only to discover Zimet had been right, that Locke asks for an exit code. The students proceed to use different methods to try to break the door, to no avail. They try to survive a few more days with the few supplies they have left, but soon they run out, so they decide to end things for themselves for a more humane ending. In class, Zimet announces they failed the experiment and reveals his profession is a bunker builder. In fact, he was the one that built that particular bunker and therefore the only one who has the code. The students want to try again, and this time they imagine a new location, choosing month Bromo. Once again, Zimet runs to grab a gun, which Petra notices. Then it's revealed that the cards hide a second characteristic that may influence the votes. James' characteristic is being gay, but he still gets accepted for his farming knowledge, although with fewer votes. Georgina, the surgeon, was exposed to the Ebola virus, so this time she's left out. Plum, the hedge fund manager, always travels with a bag of gold, so she is accepted. Chips, the carpenter, is infertile, but he's also accepted again because of his skills. Petra, the structural engineer, is also an electrical engineer, so she is saved. Andy, the electrician, reveals he has a very rare disease that may kill him at any second, so he's rejected. Poppy, the psychotherapist, can't have children, so she's left out. Vivian, the zoologist, reveals she supports PTE, so she is left out again. Jack, the chemist, won the genetic lottery, meaning he'll live long and healthy, so he's accepted again. Cavi, the real estate agent, is also a midwife, and since they've lost Georgina as their doctor, he gets to stay. This time, Parker, the gelato maker, has no extra characteristic, which means someone else has two, and he's left out. Utami, the opera singer, has two. She can speak 7 languages, but she will develop a throat tumor in 3 years that won't let her talk anymore, so she's left out. Mitzi, the wine auctioneer, has an IQ of 200, yet she's left out again. Beatrice, the fashion designer, created a popular brand of women's clothing out of bamboo, but she's also left out again, and the same happens to Russell, the harpist, who is autistic. Almost, the senator, will be the first female Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, therefore she is saved again. Bonnie, the soldier, has eidetic memory and gets saved once more. Nelson, the housekeeper, is an exceptionally kind person, which at first doesn't help him, but he ends up staying when Petra says that they need more boys. And Almost argues that they need more hard and strong workers from the middle class. When Toby, the poet, is about to mention his characteristic, Zimet shoots him again, saying this spot is for him because the group still doesn't know the code. Then Zimet gives Georgina the keys to a truck, and the people that were left outside immediately try to run away to save themselves. Unfortunately, the vehicle is hit by the explosion. The chosen ones also begin running to reach the bunker just in time, and the boring everyday life begins once again. Later in the evening, Petra wakes up and sees James isn't on his bed, so she goes looking for him only to find him getting frisky with Jack, who turns out to be gay in real life. Petra is hurt and rushes out to tell the rest of the group what she saw. Now they decide it's time to discuss how they will get together to procreate. Since Chips is infertile, he doesn't need to help, while Jack and James refuse to participate because they can't even fake it with a woman for the sake of babies. Bonnie and Cavi are paired together, and so are Almost and Nelson. As revenge for her boyfriend, Petra accepts to do it with Zimet, ignoring James when he says she still loves her, while the explosions outside ravage the planet. The three couples get frisky at the same time. After 10 weeks of no pregnancies, Zimet points out that they must change couples, saying the girls should have multiple partners. Bonnie refuses, saying they are taking logic too far to solve things, and that shouldn't override her consent. Zimet walks away only to return with a gun in hand, threatening everyone, but Bonnie to leave the room. The group runs out, but Jack manages to hide behind a corner. And once Zimet is distracted, Jack tackles him and makes him drop the gun. Bonnie quickly picks it up and holds Zimet at gunpoint, but the guys continue to fight until Zimet overpowers Jack. However, Jack retaliates by stabbing Zimet in the ear with a pin. Devastated, Zimet goes to the front door and puts in the code to open it, bringing everyone down with him. The class has failed the exercise. Again, James is more suspicious now and questions Zimet's motives for the exercise, mentioning the strange cough he had when he assigned him and Petra the roles, and pointing out that Zimet has not coughed since. Suddenly, James goes to the desk and grabs the box, running out of Zimet's reach, to open it and discover the secret. It turns out that the box has hidden compartments, and James and Petra's cards have been tampered with, meaning they would always get the same results: gay farmer and double engineer. James wants to know why Zimet hates him in particular, so Zimet brings up the allegory of Plato's cave. In this allegory, a man lives his whole life chained to a wall and only ever sees shadows and hears echoes, assuming that's how reality truly looks and sounds. One day the man is unchained and finds that the shadows are caused by bodies and the echoes are caused by voices, discovering that the whole idea of what was real was just an illusion. Zimet says that this allegory is something like James, claiming that the exercise is meant to confront James about how his privilege has ill-prepared him for the real world, but James doesn't believe him. Zimet could make him something useless like a florist, so he could be voted out since the beginning, but a gay farmer means Zimet wanted him to prolong his suffering on purpose. At that moment, Petra interrupts the argument and insists that the exercise should be done a third time, this time with James as a florist. Now, their imaginations take them to an island, and the apocalypse hasn't happened yet. Zimet goes to the bunker to grab a weapon, as usual, and he hears a noise, but thinks nothing of it. When he goes back outside, Petra joins him and offers him a hug, saying that she knows it's been hard on him. Afterward, Petra asks everyone to trust her to choose who gets to enter the bunker because she has a plan. When everyone agrees, Petra makes her choices and explains her reasoning. Mitzi is saved because to rub it on her classmates' face. After a talk with the headmaster, her mother Elise doesn't know what to do anymore. Selma has been acting out since her parents got divorced, and Michael was sent to jail, although recently he was released with an ankle monitor. One night while staying with her dad, Selma watches the news and learns that in Latin America, they're experiencing a rain 1,000 times more acidic than normal, which has killed thousands of wild animals. This rain has been caused by pollution and global warming, and scientists predict it'll reach the northern hemisphere soon. The next day, it begins raining heavily, and Elise realizes that Selma left the window of her room open, so she puts a towel on the floor to take care of the water. Then she falls asleep on her daughter's bed, not noticing the towel starting to lose color. The following day, it isn't rainy, but it's still very cloudy, and people closely follow the news because rain keeps appearing in random spots in the country. At work, Michael notices the wet ground has a weird consistency. At that moment, he gets a call from Elise, who wants to pick Selma up from school early because she's worried about the rain. Problem: since her car is in the garage, Michael will have to drive her. However, when they make it to the school, they learn the class has gone for a horse ride, and the students left their phones behind. They take the road to the forest to find Selma, but all the parents have thought the same thing, and there's a traffic jam that won't let them pass. Huge dark clouds are already forming above the forest, so Michael desperately drives off the road to find his daughter. Meanwhile, Selma isn't a very good rider, so she's stuck in the forest while her classmates move ahead. A few raindrops begin to fall, burning the sticks on the ground and hurting the horses, who run away in panic and make Selma fall. When Michael and Elise get close enough to the forest, they realize there's no room for the car to go through, so Michael gets out of the vehicle and is on foot, searching the stables first, where the poor horses are going crazy. Selma is hurry up and manage to enter the training building right before it starts raining. Some drops manage to get through the holes in the ceiling, burning the ground. Michael searches for some blankets they can use to cover themselves while he calls Elise to tell her their location. It's hard for Elise to drive because the heavy rain is affecting visibility, but eventually she finds the building and parks outside so that Michael and Selma can get in. As they return to the road, they can hear people screaming in pain caused by the acid rain. Eventually, they find the road blocked again, and they can't go back because cars lining up behind them, all of them with their paint melting away. When Elise finds an opening, she drives to the right, only to get stuck in a different section of the traffic jam. This allows some people to pull at their doors, and a guy with a heavily damaged face even manages to get in, but Michael immediately kicks him out and makes sure to lock the doors properly. Then Elise finds another opening and drives again as fast as possible, pushing a bunch of cars out of the way in the process. Selma can't take the panic anymore and has a breakdown as she watches the paint on the ceiling change colors. Moments later, it finally stops raining, and the area is covered in bodies and objects that were melted down by the acid. The family stops at the parking lot of a supermarket and takes a bunch of clothes and blankets to cover themselves and the car. Elise calls his brother at work, but he can't join them because they've blocked the roads. Michael tries calling his girlfriend, but he only gets the voicemail. For the next few hours, the family drives away intending to leave the country, which lots of people are trying to do. In the evening, the car finally stops working because of all the acid damage, and the back door is stuck. Michael kicks it a couple of times to open it while telling Selma not to breathe in case any acid splatters. Afterward, the family wanders around until they find an abandoned building. Michael makes sure there aren't other people inside and is surprised to discover the place decorated for a party that couldn't be. There's also a cat stealing party food, and Selma wants to pet it, but Elise stops her because there may be acid on its fur. Michael finally manages to contact his girlfriend and confirm she's fine, but soon he loses signal. The tap water is running, but they can't be sure if it's safe, so Michael puts some in a bowl and leaves it for the cat to test it. Selma gets angry at using the poor animal like that and immediately empties the bowl in the sink. At least Elise has found some bottled water and lets Selma have it. Then they use some foil trays and tape to cover their feet for extra protection. Minutes later, the bowl appears melted, meaning the tap water isn't safe. The only thing in the fridge is alcohol and party food, so they have that for dinner. Selma is worried because she doesn't think they can survive on foot, and when her parents try to discuss ideas, an argument ensues. They yell at each other without hearing Selma asking them to stop, and Michael gets so angry that he breaks a glass and leaves the room. Later they go to sleep, but they can hear drops off rain sneaking through weak spots on the ceiling. Selma can't sleep and decides to look for the cat, only to find a trail of blood that takes her to the poor kitty's dead body. Upset,